Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for listening. I appreciate that there are people who listen to this, and wherever you are in the state of the world and the current reality that we are all inhabiting, I hope you're taking care of those around you, and also finding ways to treat yourself nicely, because there's a lot of there's an onslaught of negative news right now. And if I am some small part of carving out a bit of relief, then I'm glad that I can be here for you. Because that's what when I think about it, that's what my greatest strength is, as certainly as an entertainer, and certainly as somebody who makes things. I'm not a political artist. I am not particularly well read on the workings of government, social unrest, or how to fix any of those things. So I will leave that most of the time to the smarter people in the room. And if I can provide a little bit of relief, if only for a short while, then I'll feel like I have done something, because the stuff I love the most has provided that for me throughout my life. And if I could be that for someone, if I could be that for you, then I'm here for you. My guest on the show today is comedian Jay Szech. Jay is a comic from Baltimore who, like Violet Gray, Tommy Zimbazo, T. Brad Hudson, Mike Finazzo, is a part of the crew that I refer to when I started doing stand-up comedy in Baltimore back in 2007, October of 2007. So this will be my 13th year as a comedian this October. This is kind of a weird year, but I'm still going to count it. And Jay I always found Jay incredibly funny. Of the crew that I rolled with, Jay was the relatable everyman kind of comedian, and I mean that in the most positive sense of the world, in that he found a way. He always was very engaging to audience, and I saw him crush all over the Baltimore and Maryland area. And the other thing, and we talk about this in the show as well, is that Jay had spent some time in Los Angeles. He also did announcing for local Maryland minor league baseball, and he's a guy that when I was starting, he was the guy that I would see headlining locally, and he was the guy I was trying to be. And it was really nice to sit and get to talk to him a bit about where he is in his life now, thoughts on comedy and the state of comedy at this moment. And it was just the silver lining of the pandemic and having to record remotely is that I now am able to talk to these comics that I started with in Baltimore that were so important to my development as a stand-up comedian, which also then, of course, leads into this podcast. So I owe a lot of gratitude for the direction that my career took from that Baltimore scene, and Jay was a big part of that. So we're going to get into it. This is going to be a couple of old friends, kind of catching up, because I hadn't talked to Jay in a while. And it was really great to get to hear from him. So if you enjoy this, I would love to hear from you. I like engaging with people, even if you think I suck. If you can be hilariously specific about it, I wouldn't mind hearing from you as well. You can find me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey, and I'm Will Carey 23 on Instagram. And if you enjoy this, we are available wherever you get your podcasts. I've got over 170 other episodes for you to enjoy as well. And thanks for being here. And let's go to my chat with comedian Jay Szech. All right, Jay Szech. I am slowly rounding out, and finally, the silver lining of not being able to leave my apartment is that now I have the chance to reach out to, in all sincerity, the group of comedians that I think made me not only the comic I am, but the person I am today. And that's like includes you and everyone else from Baltimore, man.
You are very sweet to say that, Will. You're a total liar. You were funny without us. But we had good times, man. We really had a cool Baltimore scene for a while. Not that it's not cool now. It's just it's different
Mm-hmm.
now. A lot of us were not getting up as much as we'd like to. We got old. We started having kids. Careers that made us a little more money, got a little more serious. Grad school, that kind of stuff. So I wish I could say I was still out getting it done as much as I would like, but it's just a different animal now, man. But you're up in New York, you're doing it. You're
Yeah.
doing your thing.
I'm,
You're a
I'm,
big
I'm,
kid.
yeah, I'm living it, man. Still like 10 years after I left, I still enjoy, I still enjoy being up here, which is quite an accomplishment for me personally as well. Like, cause man, I remember just like the idea of New York was like that was like or Los Angeles, like the big show business cities. At a certain point, that was like all I ever wanted at a certain point was to just get here and do comedy, and then just keep doing it. And I remember thinking like when I met you, and I probably if I'm thinking back on it, I probably met you at the original Drink Till We're Funny, which was Damon's. So like you were the
Yeah.
guy that had like been in Los Angeles for a while, and you would like headline Drink Till We're Funny sometimes. So that was what I was aspiring to, man. That was all
Oh,
I was going for
you
at that.
poor young man. You poor young man. No, those were good times, man. We did a lot of fun shows. I think we learned a lot how to deal with. LA taught me how to write.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore taught me how to deal with audiences.
Yeah, because that's like doing comedy in like places like I feel like Baltimore or maybe like Charlottesville, North Carolina, or like any of these other markets that you would travel to if you were going on the road. That's where I think like the job of doing stand up comedy comes into. Like I was talking to I don't know if you know the comedian Sean Donnelly. He's a really funny guy. We were talking
I
about
know that
like
name.
he's a really funny New York comic, and just like we were talking about like those shows like Friday night second show when the crowd's like just super blasted, and or if it's the Comedy Factory and they've got those $20 all you can drink tickets, which has made every
Mm-hmm.
headliner I talk to shudder when I bring it up.
Yeah.
The when you get into like those are where you like and you have to like abandon your act and just riff and do crowd work. You learn those skills, I think, like doing comedy in places like
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore, certainly.
You do, and you learn them from crappy bar shows. But as much as we say they were crappy, they were a good time. I mean, if they weren't fun, we wouldn't have been doing them. You learn something. Whether it's honing a joke, whether it's learning how to deal with an audience member. Uh, in many cases, looking back, I always think of as I was coming up, veteran comics who would tell me like, "Hey, that was funny, but don't mess with the audience member like that. Don't go too hard at them because, then the audience will turn on you because then you become the bad guy." And just
Yeah.
learning those little lessons, I think were important.
Yeah, exactly. Always making sure that you're winning the "I'm not an asshole" contest when it comes to crowd interactions. Certainly.
No, absolutely. I always tell, especially, kind of before I started trailing off a little bit with comedy. At some point, I'm going to get back out there. I don't know when. This pandemic has not been helpful.
Right.
But just telling younger comics, like, look, man, whoever it is, they put their $5 down, or they bought their 2 drinks, or whatever they did, whether it's a crappy bar show or a club. They came to see you. They came. They want you to do well. They want you to be funny. They don't want to watch you screw around with the electrician in the third row who's had 15 natural lights. That's not what they want. They want you to do well. They're rooting for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Like no one wants to go home at the end of the night thinking like, ah, fucked up, never gonna do that again. And I feel like comedy has that problem more so than other art forms because I feel like if I know a lot of people that have gone to like maybe one bad showcase show and have it's like talking to like someone with PTSD. You could be like, not all comedy shows are like that. Got to get them to it, and then try to get them to a better one with funnier people.
Listen, the only person who should go home feeling like crap after a comedy show is the comic. Like that's it. That's the only person who should feel bad when they leave because we're gonna feel bad anyway about something. So no, everybody else should go home and have had a good time and got their money's worth. That's what the thing is I liked about clubs was standing outside and greeting. I'm not going to say fans; they didn't come to see me, but you know, greeting the patrons as they
Mm-hmm.
left the club. And they always thought that was the coolest thing, that the comics would come out and talk to them and take photos with them. And so as much as it's the give us attention, look at us, we need to be loved. It was also just a nice way to kind of thank them for coming out on a Friday or Saturday night where there's a lot of things they could be doing with their money.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and especially now that I'm like in my mid 30s, I'm 34. Like, just the fact, kind of like that Seinfeld riff from his latest Netflix special. Just the fact that anybody like
Mm.
goes out and does things anymore seems
Yep.
like such an accomplishment. And this is even like pre-pandemic. Now I can say I can just sit around my apartment and be a hero. But even like the decision like go out and like deal with all the logistics of like doing stuff like, or I don't know if you've ever tried to coordinate like going to brunch with like more than four friends. It's a goddamn nightmare.
Since I have had kids, no, there's been no brunches. I got two kids. I'm not taking them to brunch. That's just not going to happen.
Well,
If
that's
we're, if we're organizing a trip, it's to the zoo or the aquarium, or you know whose house are we going to hang out at a drink while the kids play in a little Tykes plastic house or something like that. That's what we're doing. There's no brunch, man. One day, Will. One day.
I want this for you, Jay. Now I want to trace this a little bit because the fact that you
Mm-hmm.
have two kids now, I and again I feel like of kind of thinking of like everybody else I started with, and then also like the comics I know because I feel like I feel like I know a lot of comics much better than I actually do because I've seen their act. But I know nothing about your life. I don't even know if you're originally from Maryland or not.
I am. I grew up in Linthicum, Maryland. Uh,
Linthicum.
Honestly, it's where yeah, Linthicum. So if you've flown out of BWI, you've been to my hometown.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's where I grew up and ended up buying a house. Oddly enough, wasn't part of the plan. It just a house came on the market and we had money and they took our offer, so we ended up buying a house here. But yeah, so now I'm a high school teacher by trade and
Mm-hmm.
training. That's what I do. Was doing stand up for a long time. Started in college, just kept going with it, and you know, like anything else, you have more responsibility. So it was a little less stand up and a little more grad school, a little more climbing the teaching ladder,
Mm-hmm.
so to say. And then this year I changed schools, so I'm excited. I became an administrator, and now I'm not an administrator anymore, and I'm really excited about that
Uh-huh.
because I think I will have the mental bandwidth and the energy to actually start writing my stuff again and get out there and tell some jokes when this is all over. So
Oh yeah, exactly. My mom was an elementary school teacher for over 30 years and she never wanted to move up into administration because I feel like there's and not unlike I guess if you were like a baggage handler, like I'm just thinking of the show F is for Family and then you move up into management, suddenly you're on the other side of like your former comrades. Is it at all like that? Is that at all how
you
it
know
feels?
the position I had, I was a dean of students, so I wasn't like the head of the
Mhm.
school or anything. So I kind of had to walk a fine line between being an advocate for the students, but also dropping the hammer when I had to, but
Sure.
also being an advocate for the faculty as well. So you got to work with a lot of different groups when you're working at private schools, especially as like the dean. And it was a great gig for about 4 or 5 years, and it's like I've always said it's one of those jobs though. I think you get to about 5, maybe 6 years, and you need to do something different because
Mhm.
it will emotionally just kind of burn you out. It's a burnout kind of gig with some of the stuff
Yeah.
you have to deal with. So I'm glad I did it. I'm just as glad to not be doing it anymore.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
makes total sense to me. And were your parents in education, or what did
Now
your folks do?
now my parents worked for the phone company.
Oh really?
Yeah, yeah. That was back in the days when you could get out of school with a high school education and go get yourself a career, and
Yep.
that's what they did. They rode that wave for 30 plus years for both of them, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm an only child, so they were able to
Uh
retire
huh.
a little bit earlier than most. So yeah, no, I was a my parents were phone company people.
Uh huh. Yeah. I was an only child also, so I was like very much I was like a attention-starved brat
I
most of the time.
Christmas was pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can relate to that certainly as well.
Yeah.
And Lithicum, so it's near BWI, and if you had to describe Lithicum to someone who's never been there, how would you do that?
Oh, I would say think of just kind of like your typical sort of American suburb that started. The original parts of it are like go back to like the turn of the century. You know, that kind of suburb when they had the
Yeah.
train line running out of Baltimore,
Mm-hmm.
the electric train. But the rest of it is just kind of most of it is post World War II, tract housing, and
Mm-hmm.
the Linthicum family sold off lots of the old farm, and developers built houses, and so it's kind
Uh-huh.
of the classic 1950s American suburb,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah, I'm picturing as well. I always think of like all the other towns around that area, like your Ellicott cities and Laurels and places like that. It's very classically American compared to where I grew up. I grew up in Calvert County.
Right, you're a Southern Maryland kid. That's
Yes,
right.
I'm a Southern Maryland kid, which I learned recently. Saint Leonard, where I spent the majority of my childhood, is not even really a town or a hamlet. It's technically considered a census designated place. This is the joke I'm
Hmm.
gonna do when stages happen again, and is that I'm just from a loose collection of people in the woods that the census tracks. like
You'd be surprised. There's a lot of communities like that though, where it's like, are we a town? Ish. Hamlet, village. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, just people that are like they like the idea of going off the grid, but they don't want to go like all in on moving off the grid. So it's like open mic homesteading kind of. I'm a big fan of that show on Discovery Channel, Homestead Rescue. That I don't know if you've ever seen it, but this like grizzled dude who's like been living in the woods in Alaska for 30 years goes and helps people who don't know what they're doing in the woods be better about living in the woods. It's fascinating.
It's like being a headlining comic at bars in Canton. That's you know
it, it,
I'm
it,
headlining the Red House Tavern. That's an inside joke for Will and I. But when you're a headliner at the Red House, that's when you've made it.
exactly. And then I always judge. I always like took it as a sign of like whoever was headlining those kinds of shows, like how they played it up. If it's like I'm headlining this bar versus like I headline all over the country.
Yeah, he headlines all over the country, and by the country you mean Baltimore County, Maryland. Then yes, he headlines all over the country.
Yeah, and then you eventually get to those like the kind of road gigs that I ever saw myself getting, where like those towns where you have to fly to a city, then get on the smaller plane that's definitely going to crash on your way there.
Yeah, yeah, the little guy plane, or you end up at a LARPing festival or something like that, and you're like, "This is what we're doing." Okay, I'm gonna fill out those grad school applications.
Yeah, LARPing festival. I guess Zimbazo wasn't available for that one.
He was. I think we did that one together. I think we did two of those together.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
that's exactly what I imagine him doing, and it brings me joy to know that you were along for that. Because
Oh yeah.
I always felt like me, Violet, and Brian and Tommy always held like the kind of like we were like you were like the I always viewed you as like the outnumbered jock, whereas normally like there's the one nerd
It
amongst
really
all the
was.
pretty
Yeah.
people, and
Yeah.
then we would all just like, oh, Doctor Who and Game of Thrones, and you're just like, what the fuck are you all talking
I'm,
about?
I'm just I'm just sitting at a picnic table staring off into the distance. I got nothing to do with you people. I got nothing because and Tommy would be dressed up like so he's got his
Yeah,
costumes, his regalia. I don't even want to call it a costume. That feels insulting. But he's got his full regalia on and everything, and I'm just sitting there in like a plaid shirt and jeans, looking at him like just give me your lunch money. Just give me your lunch money now. Go get in that trash can. All right. You damn nerds, and I like Star Trek, and someone would mention Star Trek,
sure.
and then they'd be like, "Well, did you see this episode?" I'm like, "Oh shit, well, we got nothing in common now. I didn't see that episode, so we're screwed."
Exactly.
Yeah, but
You
it
go
was it
down the
was
rabbit holes
fun
of it.
going to the LARPing contests were pretty fun though to show up and see everybody kind of doing their thing, and
Mm-hmm.
as total nerddom as it was cool. It was their nerddom. As to me, I mean, really, there is no. We make fun of it, but there's no difference between these guys putting on their stuff and LARPing, and me putting on a purple jersey on Sundays and sitting down and watching the Ravens. There's really no difference,
And you're completely right. And once you realize that they're not too far off, it's kind of I feel like it should invite more people in, because the same kind of like, well, the same people that know like, oh, the director of this episode went on to be like a feature film director, compared to like the guys that know like all of the rushing yards or like pass completions for like the third string quarterback on the Ravens back when they were the Colts.
Yeah.
All it's the same level of it's the same level of like granular dedication to details that only you're interested in. It's just we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, I mean, I know a ton of sports trivia. I couldn't tell you who so and so rushed, how many yards they rushed for in 1989. I don't know. Like I got a kid who's going to scream at me about a book. I got one kid who wants to eat. It's like I don't have time to. You don't have the mental bandwidth. You get to a certain point, you're like, stuff has to leave your brain. Like I can remember to get two kids in the car successfully in the morning, or I can remember how many yards Aikman threw for in '93. It's going to be the two kids into the car because my wife will kill me otherwise.
Yeah, and that's and that's the survival instinct kicking in, I think.
It is.
And so when you were growing up, were you like an athlete? Were you like an athletic kid always when you were younger?
I would say when I was younger, I aspired to be an athletic kid.
Uh-huh.
I was the short kid, but I was fast. So as I got a little bit bigger and a little stronger, I kind of grew. I wouldn't say I grew into my body because I never got big, but I at least kind of learned how to use my body. So I ran track and cross country and played a little lacrosse in high school, and then was recruited to run track in college. And that was kind of my athletic glory that I had. So
track runner.
Nothing too sexy.
If I can say,
pole vaulter.
Oh, pole. Now that is impressive to me, because I've never attempted to pole vault, but I just know because of how much I weigh that I just have this nightmare of the pole just snapping in half and then landing on my ass.
It happens.
I've seen it, and I'm like, I don't want that to be how I go viral.
Yeah, no, I did it for 8 years, and everyone's like, "Oh, were you good?" I was like, "Good enough to not get cut, I guess." And there's only so many stupid people lining up to pole vault, so that kind of was my my inroad to staying on the team, I guess.
Yeah, and then talk about like, and were you like a sprinter or like a distance runner?
So I did cross country for fun. I still do distance today, just to stay in shape. But yeah, no, I was a sprinter. That was my thing. So
yeah. I've always envied like distance runners, because like every time I'm trying to get in better shape now, and it's like I can't go much longer than a couple minutes before I need to start walking. It's embarrassing.
It's okay. It's walk jog, man. It's okay. I do the same thing. I've sprained my ankle like twice this summer, so it's been a lot of getting healthy, hurt, come back again. So that's a pain in the butt, but as long as you're getting out there and doing it and still moving, that's what it's all about. Mike Finazzo and I go running.
Oh yeah,
from time to time. Oh yeah, we try to get together like once a week and we go running now. That's our like old man thing we do.
Oh, that's nice. I like knowing that. I always like whenever I would see you guys like going to O's games together, I was like, that's nice. I'm glad that that's happening.
Oh, yeah, it's great though. He'll be like, I don't know, Jay, you want to go for a run? I'm like, yes, come on, Mike, let's go. I don't know, my back hurts. I'm like, shut up, Mike, come on, we can do this. So, just a couple of old farts running around Catonsville. We're having a good time.
Awesome. I had Mike on back in April. It was good to get to chat with him. This was right before his daughter was born.
Yeah. Oh, he's doing great, man. He is like loving fatherhood. He is all about it.
That's great. That's great.
He's doing a great job. Yeah.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. I'm glad that everybody and I got to get Brian Preston on soon. I'm glad everybody's
yeah. You do. You give Brian Preston. I think just get him.
So now, okay.
I love Brian. Brian. Brian is like Brian posts the best things on Facebook ever.
Yeah,
he really, really does.
Yeah, I find him.
It's been fun to see him grow as a comic too. Like I love going up to Wits' End when he's up there and just I love Brian Preston.
Yeah, I remember. I think must have met him like right when he started. I mean, I was just starting also, and I felt like a kind of like I was saying earlier. Like I was just well, I was like completely lost at that time. Like I'm majoring at theater at Towson, but I was
Yeah.
never getting cast in leads and stuff. And I was like,
Hmm.
my band had broken up, and I was just like, I got to find something that doesn't involve relying on other people. And then stand up came into my mind. And then that's how I ended up with you guys at Damon's every Sunday for like 2.5 years before I moved.
Yeah, you guys were baby comics, man. It was so much fun watching you guys.
Yeah, and then again, like you're the guy who's like had been around for a while and seen some shit. Now, this is what I want to track because when I
Okay.
look at you, you're an athletic guy, uh, you're good looking, got a lot of things going right. So how do you end up a comic, man? Because this is not the narrative doesn't trace.
I wanted to make people laugh. That was really my thing. I was always kind of the I wasn't always the funny one in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Um I was just the guy who I think maybe could write the best joke or
Mm-hmm.
deliver it the right way and deliver it over and over again. Um so I just, I think with comedy it always comes from some sort of place, and I think for me it was just sometimes just being annoyed with people a lot.
Uh huh.
um and so I just started, I was a big Carlin fan. I loved his anger.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Leary, those guys. And I just started to write about stuff that just, not like in a manifesto way, but just writing bits about stuff that annoyed me. And of course, your early stuff sounds like whoever your comedic influences are.
Right.
um and then that grew a little bit. And I started going down to DC after I graduated from college. um, and that was cool. That was a good experience because you really and I was down there with like Danny Rouillet,
Mm-hmm.
Rory Scovel. Like I
Uh,
did shows with those guys,
yeah.
and you're
Right.
watching them work, and you're like, oh, like these guys are good. Those guys should have been in LA. I had no business in LA. But it was a good experience. But so working with those guys and then just getting to LA and learning to kind of take that energy I had and then write with it. Um, that was that was fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're only children, so there's probably that broken, please pay more attention to me kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure.
everyone thinks that you're showered with attention all the time as an only child, and you're not. I mean, there are times I think you get a little lonely.
Yeah. Well, there are times
So I
that your
think,
parents want time to themselves, and you gotta
yeah,
amuse
exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
it doesn't come from like a broken place or anything like that. It was just I just really liked making people laugh, and it was just trying to figure out how to uh, you know make them laugh, but also as I got older and doing stand up, making sure they're leaving having had a good time. Not,
Yeah.
there's some comics you see them and you're like, that was really funny. I also really, really feel bad for that person. Um,
Mm-hmm. I
I
see
always
a lot of
wanted,
that.
yeah, I always wanted people to leave and be like, hey, I had a really good time. And I was like, cool, because that's all I ever wanted people to do was have a good time uh, at any show I was doing. I never wanted them to leave and be like, oh, Jesus, that guy needs help. Um, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Totally. Yeah.
that's for me, that's kind of where it comes from. It was just so much more fun to make people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't the big kid. I
Yeah.
wasn't the strongest kid. I wasn't the best athlete. And I wasn't the best student even. So you got to find something that separates you a little bit. And I
Mm-hmm.
think just kind of being a wise ass was my thing. I was just one of those wise asses who was able to actually sit down and write jokes.
Yeah. That I vibe with that completely. For me, stand up was the thing that none of the other people I was studying theater with and doing plays with. Not a lot of. There was maybe like two other people that I knew from Towson Theater that
Mm-hmm.
ended up doing stand up, but that was like the thing I could do that they couldn't, and
Right.
it gave me a little bit of like I don't want to I don't want to say power because that's not the exact thing, but it gave me like a little bit of like confidence. Certainly, is to have
Yeah.
this
And
thing.
and I did some drama in high school, and I did a little bit in college at Salisbury, but it was never really like my thing. Like I enjoyed it, I enjoyed doing the shows, but I never really kind of felt like that was my crew
Uh huh.
either. Um, and I think like you, it was like the stand up thing. The fact that I could do that, I felt like sort of set me apart, and I liked. I like, maybe this is where the only child thing comes in. I really like the solitude of it in a way. Like as
Mm-hmm.
much as we have like a little comedy community, and you have little comedy communities all over the country, whether it's improv or stand up or whatever.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you get up there and it's you, man.
Yeah, totally.
It's you, and it's what you bring to the table, and it doesn't matter who you are. You better make them laugh, or they're gonna walk on you. Um, I can't remember what comic uh, talked about that at one point, but it was like, Jack Nicholson could get up there and be like, I'm doing stand up, and the
Uh-huh.
audience would laugh for about 30 seconds. And then they'd be like, all right, Jack, you doing jokes? I mean, what do you got? That's, you can't just
Exactly.
stand up there, man, and be Jack Nicholson. You got to have some funny. And I can't remember what comic said that. But I think that's what I liked about it too. It's just sort of like this, it's you up there, man. You are the sole man on the moon.
100%. And just because, and especially now that there's lots of, I feel like there's lots of celebrities that end up in stand up and end up in clubs. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily, you might get booked and draw because people know you, but that does not mean the show is going to go well. 'Cause-
Right. I mean, there's a lot of people who have been booked on national tours who never go out on a tour again,
yeah,
or the tour may not make it to its final stop just because, tickets aren't moving. You
sure.
can only be, I think some of the Jackass guys have done that, have transitioned to stand up, things like that. I know there's been
Hmm.
some pro wrestlers who have done that.
Oh, yeah,
And
several.
I haven't seen their work, so I don't know where they are with it today. Um, but you can only trade on your name for so long before you gotta be funny up there, and it's got to be some real funny too. It can't just be like, hey, I'm just being a goofball up here, because that's not what's going to get you rebooked.
Totally, 100%, and that's almost as important as being able to get the gig in the first place is to get asked back. Because I feel like a lot of people can
Yeah,
get in once and then never get asked back. Did you
right.
start in Maryland or did you start in Los Angeles?
No, I started in Maryland. I started just doing some little things when I was in college at Salisbury,
What
and
year
then
was
came
this?
up and started. This was around 2003, 2002, something like that.
Okay.
And then when I got summers, I started coming home and then doing some stand up. Like I did Winchester's down on Water Street back when there was a
Uh huh.
Winchester's on Water Street.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Heard of
that's where I did my
Winchester's.
first kind of like real real gig, I would say. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
say a gig, but excuse me, open mic is where I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And then there wasn't a ton going on in Baltimore in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
So I drove down to DC a lot. Kurt Shackelford put me up on a lot of his rooms.
Uh huh.
So I kind of worked
I
I
know
worked
Kurt.
that circuit for about a year or so, and and I was stupid. I was young, and it was like, hey, I don't have any responsibilities, and I can go to LA, and I did, and it didn't work out in the long run, but I'm glad I did it. I mean, it was an experience, and I learned a ton. I mean, I kind of feel like that's where I got to grow up a little bit as a comic. I mean, you're
Mm-hmm.
always growing, but I learned, I took classes out there. I learned to write. So it wasn't just, hey, I'm out doing shitty bar shows. It was, I actually worked at it, 7 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Was your experience of LA? Because I've heard some of like new comic stories of like waiting like for like 6 hours in front of like the Laugh Factory or like trying to
Mm-hmm.
doing the
Yeah.
door or like, oh, you got to do the door at the Comedy Store for like 2 years before you can start getting spots. Was that your experience?
So I did a lot of the like North Hollywood, that area. So we were doing a
Uh huh.
lot of bar shows. Haha Cafe was kind of our nightly, pay your $5 and you can get up and everything.
Yeah.
And then from there you would do like showcases and things like that. And
Sure.
if you were lucky, you got to do like the green room at the Comedy Store, stuff like that.
Right.
You get to work like the side rooms a little bit. No one's putting you up on their main stage or anything.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was crazy. It was one of those deals you can't. But I remember sleeping on the street all night for his what's the name of the show? Um,
Oh,
it's not
and
America's Got Talent. It was Last
oh,
Comic Standing.
last comic standing. Yeah.
Yeah, so a bunch of us we slept on the street all night for our 60-second spot to audition,
Uh huh.
and it was cool. It was fun. It was an experience.
Oh yeah, I remember. I maybe you were there, but I remember doing that for stand up for diversity for NBC. I think it was maybe you, me,
Mm.
Tommy, and Brian, and Violet was probably there as well. Like again, that the crew that I've referred to when I talk about
Yeah.
the Baltimore time, we go down and like crash in front of the Baltimore Comedy Factory, the old location, which was down in the city, and I was still like afraid of Baltimore City at that time. So I would be like just kind of like looking around like uh that was cool. I don't think I would do that audition now because the idea of the white guy doing the diversity audition is probably not cool in 2020. But I'm still happy for the experience certainly. And how long were you in Los Angeles?
About a year and change, and then I was out of money, so I went and stayed with friends in San Diego for a few months,
Mm-hmm.
and then made my way back to Baltimore. So, and it was fun. I did stand up in San Diego.
Yeah, San
That
Diego has
that
a fun
was
little scene.
that's a cool scene. Zoltan, who's out there getting it done, man. He's selling albums and everything. We did a bunch of shows together. Ocean Beach Comedy. We had a good time, man. It was a
That's
lot of fun.
excellent. And then you just kind of like circumstances dictated that you wanted to get back to Maryland.
Yeah, I came home and then just started jumping back into the little tiny Baltimore scene.
Mm-hmm.
um that was really cool to watch grow for a few years there. I don't really know where it is right now because I haven't been a super active member, I would say, for the last couple years. Mainly just do career stuff and kids and family, just being
Sure,
needed in
sure.
other places. Got back into coaching too with track and cross country.
Uh huh.
So I don't really know where the scene is right now. Like I'm on the outside of it a little bit looking in. Um, it just seems like a very different animal these days. Like part of me wants to get back up on stage, then part of me doesn't. I think it's the sort of maybe the fears that every comic kind of maybe has in 2020. It's like, am I going to say something wrong? Am I going to do something wrong? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy for everybody to granted we've had social media for a while now, but it just definitely feels like it's so much easier for people to jump on whatever platform and get out the pitchforks and torches.
Yeah, and if you don't have your thought kind of thought through, it's very easy for it to be misinterpreted. Certainly, my understanding of Baltimore now is that there's a lot more rooms, but like I hear about some of the stuff, and it reminds me of kind of like all of the kind of negative like negative bullshitty things about doing comedy in New York are starting to creep in, like the doing the open mics where everyone's staring at their phones the entire time,
Yeah.
and the cliquishness of it, which is maybe that's just the natural byproducts of human nature.
I think it is. I mean, there was definitely a group I ran with in Los Angeles. There was definitely a group I ran with in San Diego. I think comedy by nature is a little bit clicky,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having people you identify with, as long as you're not just being a dirtbag to people that are outside of your group. Um, but I definitely noticed that at some venues, and I'm not going to badmouth anybody or any venues or anything like
Sure,
that.
sure.
Um,
I don't
but
want you to.
just more and more, I started to notice that half the comics are outside smoking, or it's like nobody. How do you get feedback? You
Right.
can't stand in front of an empty room and then expect these jokes to grow legs and really start to develop. Because I mean that's really how comics I think get to be in their little cliques and develop their friendships. Is hey Will, come here, come here, come here.
Yeah.
Try this. Hey, say this. Take that word out and do this. And someone just gives you pointers. Next thing you know, you're writing together, or you bounce things off of each other. And I think it's really hard to do that now because either everyone's either in their phone, or they're outside, vaping, smoking, whatever, or they're just trying to get out of the venue because there's 5,000 people at this open mic. And
Right.
Finazzo and I, and I can speak for him on this because we both said the same thing. There were some open mics we wanted to go to, and we went a couple times. And it was just like, do you feel like you're getting anything out of this anymore? And I was like, no, we're not. It's And it wasn't that we were better comics than the folks that were performing. We were just at a different place in comedy. And it was like, I don't
Yeah.
think, where we are in our lives and the amount of shows we've done, I just don't know if we're able to get anything constructive out of this environment or out of this crowd or this group of comics, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I certainly hit a point of diminishing returns when it comes to like doing the 3 to 4
Mm-hmm.
sets in a night thing, which I'm glad I did it when I did it, and it was definitely
Yeah,
important
yeah,
that I did. But then you do had to hit a certain point where you got to be like, okay, I've got to start working smarter and not harder. I got to start like getting like trying to get on like more books, get more book spots, or like get better audiences. Or if the audience sucks, I need it to be a show. You know, if that
yeah,
makes any sense. And the other
yeah.
and the other and the other thing is, and this also I think about this moment a lot because this is where I realized I was gonna try to, I guess, make as much of my own path through show business
Mm-hmm.
as I could. I know that I go up and have good sets, but then sometimes like if you're not famous, that might not be enough. Like
Right.
the fact that I know comics that have been on like Letterman and Conan
Mm-hmm.
and the Tonight Show, and there are some bar shows that they can't do,
Yeah.
makes me like have an aneurysm.
Yeah. Well, dude, remember, like I'd kill all over town. I'll say it. I killed all over town. In
And I'll
Baltimore
say
anyway.
and I will
And
say this: I was with Jay, and yes, he did. I
but
would see you have killer sets, man.
do you remember what room in what neighborhood was my white whale?
What?
Do you remember?
Oh God, you're gonna have to give me a hint. I don't know if I can quite recall.
Okay. Hamden, man, the Golden West Cafe was
I had a
my
feeling, yeah.
white whale. I would be slaying at Magooby's in the feature spot, prime time, rock and roll, killing it, killing it. And then I get up to Hamden and they're like, yeah, he had a varsity jacket in high school. F this guy. And then Hamden was my white whale. I mean, Jim Meyer came up to me one day and, Jim was like, Mr. I think he was the mayor of Hamden for a brief time there.
Yeah.
He just put his arm around me and I ate it. I ate it. Aparno was there and everything. I ate it. And he comes up, puts his arm, and he goes, I've seen you kill all over. He goes, this is your white whale, man. He's like, this is, I don't know. I don't know what it is with you in the Golden West. And I said, it's not just Golden West. I said, it's Hamden in general. Hamden hates me. And I hate Hamden. So I am completely fine with this. So for those of you listening at home, for those of you following along, Hamden is a bit of a hipster enclave in Baltimore, and it's a rat nest. Of
Yeah,
what you want to call us.
Hampton is where everybody goes when they can't afford Williamsburg anymore.
Yeah,
That's because I saw that comparison absolutely, like which not to blow smoke up my own ass, but I always felt like really comfortable in the Gold West Cafe. And then
let me clarify. I'm sure the Golden West is a fine establishment with great people and great food working there. I don't know if it's still open. If it is, good for them, and I wish them nothing but the best. But their crowds hated me comedy wise.
yeah, because exactly, because then at that point it doesn't even become about your jokes. It's just about you remind them of the guy who beat them up in high school, and so they're not even going to give you a
Which,
chance.
but I'm 5'8". Like if you got beat up by a 5'8" guy in high school, then you know what? You kind of had it coming.
Right.
You kind of had it coming.
It's like
Like
maybe lift a couple weights.
yeah. I mean, like Will, you're a big guy, Will. I mean, if you beat
Yeah.
somebody up, I can totally see it. If I'm beating you up, you deserved it, okay? And you had it coming, and nobody should feel bad for you, okay? Nobody.
Yeah. I can absolutely see that. And then did you also and correct me if I'm wrong. Did I know you're a sports guy. Did you work for a team for a while you were also an educator?
Yeah. So I worked for the Aberdeen Ironbirds. I was their on-field MC slash goofball.
Uh-huh.
So I was the guy on top of the dugouts, now the field with the microphone, doing the zany games in between innings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun. That was also really good practice for stand up too, because you had to be. A lot of times, if you go to those events, there's somebody with like a clipboard, and they're
Mm-hmm.
going off of that. and I refused to use one. It was like, no, I was like, I got to do it all stream of consciousness in my head.
Sure.
So I would just kind of lock in, the rules of the game, timing, whatever it was we were doing. And it was such a great gig for somebody that was, young and doing stand up, because you learned how to manage your time. You learned how to, engage the audience on the fly. And up in Hartford County, a lot of those people are just like, just play the game, get off the field. They didn't want to see me.
Sure.
But we kind of, by the end, they loved me. And then I did I was their PA announcer for 5 years. So that was a good time, being up in the booth and calling baseball every night.
Oh, that's got to be pretty fun. And this is minor league baseball. So
yeah, this was a single A rookie ball. So this is pretty much a June through beginning of June through beginning of September league, New York Penn League.
Okay, is that the same league that like the Brooklyn Cyclones play in? Because I've gone to okay, because minor league baseball for the ticket price has like the highest entertainment return, I think, in professional sports. Like, I don't know if they're just so happy everyone's there. They're just kind of keep throwing entertainment at you.
Well, it's a lot of it is your market too. So a lot of teams that are in small towns sometimes they don't have to throw as much because that literally is the thing to do at night in the summer.
Right.
But if you want to get people out there, you got to give them something, because if people are going to spend their money and they're going to bring their kids to the ballpark, you got to have something going on between every inning break that's going to engage them. And whether it's get them to buy something, to pay attention, or, for our big thing up at Aberdeen, it was, hey, we got to get you guys buying season tickets for next year. We got to get the renewals.
Yeah.
So you always knew when renewal season was here. I'm running around the park, like Jerry Lewis doing the telethon, and I'm, everything is wonderful, these nice people, and because the sales guys are leaning on you, going, hey, you got to take care of my client over here. I got to take care of my client over here, because they want to get those renewals. And so that was a huge part of minor league baseball, was getting those families to come back next year. Aberdeen too, you are close enough to Baltimore that you are competing with the major league club in terms of, hey, am I going to drive down to the game, or am I going to stay at home and watch it on cable? So with the Orioles farm system between Bowie, Aberdeen, Frederick, you're close enough to the big league city that you got to put a product on the field that is going to motivate people to get out of their house or not drive down to Camden Yards.
Yeah, exactly. You got to provide as again a product on the field.
Welcome to Will and Jay on Sports Talk 980.
You've got the perfect sports announcer, sports radio voice.
Will and Jay on the Fan. Turn it up and rip the knob off.
And you would definitely be the guy driving the show. I guess I would probably be the laughing guy, or the one who's doesn't really know how the game works, and oh, well, why is that good?
You're just leaning back in a chair going, oh, you so crazy, Jay.
Yeah.
You're that guy.
Yeah, you're the guy you're the guy that when we have to go do a charity car wash or something like that, everyone's coming up to see you, and I'm just there tweaking the knobs.
That's what some of those shows were. I think we did. Were you on some of those American Legion shows we did?
A couple.
I did Irwin shows.
I did a couple of Irwin shows, but I definitely did an American Legion with Mickey Coachella and Alex Powers. I definitely did a few of those.
Oh my God, Alex Powers. Okay, yeah, I remember Alex and Mickey probably did 4 hours there at the VFW.
Mm-hmm.
They probably all fell asleep because they're 80. Always had a good time with those shows.
Yeah, those shows were always fun. I remember him. The clearest joke I remember from Mickey is talking about anal sex. He's don't you're going into someone's house. Don't just they open the door and then you're rushed to the back. That's the joke I always remember of him. I also, one of my clearest Mickey Coachella memories. I'm so sorry. I'm going on a slight tangent here.
Go for it, man. This is fun.
My first, Alex always thought I was funny, and so I went to see her do a guest spot on one of Mickey's weekends at the Comedy Factory, and I did my first ever guest set at the Factory there, and I was okay, I'm gonna just do my jokes as quickly as possible, and that's how I'll survive. And I managed to squeak by on that. Now, for anybody listening to this who doesn't know who Mickey Coachella is Mickey Coachella was the drive time host on 98 Rock in Baltimore, which is the modern rock radio station, which is a very specific kind of radio. And I remember seeing him like dry hump bachelorettes. Like he's the guy that like all my comic friends would like freak out when they hear bachelorette party, but he's like bringing the bride to be up and like taking off his clothes and giving her a lamp dance. I think I saw Justin Schlegel join in one time. And that weekend, and then that weekend I saw someone like just rush the stage and propose to his girlfriend, which reminded me of a Patton Oswalt story when that happened to him. And those were wild weekends with Coachella for sure.
And some of those shows would go on forever. Like we'd be up and like Mickey's at like 2 hours. You're looking at your watch, especially on like a Saturday night where you're like, hey, Nick, I'm trying to get paid, man. Like I gotta go home. All right. I gotta drive ahead, man. So like, it's like the only time I think I ever went into like a booker's office and be like, hey, can I get my check before the headliner? Cause I don't know when he's stopping and I gotta go home. And they're like, oh yeah, like here's a check, like leave. I'm like, thank you. It was, I'd be walking out the door. I tipped waitresses. I took care of the green room staff and, I'm tipping people out before I leave and he's still going, approaching hour number 3. And, so he's up there doing raising money for juvenile diabetes or whatever, doing his telethon. And, so I was like, I got to get out of here. But, definitely did some Mickey shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like when you're a younger comic and you hear stories about like, oh, Chappelle went in the Laugh Factory and he did 7 hours, and then Dane Cook came in the next night, he did 8 hours. Like when I was a newer comic, I thought, oh, that's so impressive. But now I'm just like, that's really disrespectful to the wait staff. They probably want to see their families again.
But I gotta think though, those guys just maybe I mean, and I don't know because I never made it to that level, obviously. But you got to wonder, did they just walk in with some cash and just start handing out money, be like, this is how this is going to go down tonight. Here, this is for you. Sound guy, this is for you. MC, this is for you. Host, like, did they just go in and like tip and just start taking care of people and be like, look, I'm going to be here for a while working some stuff out. I got to think they had some sort of arrangement in place. Not just rolling into the Laugh Factory and dropping 10 hours.
I would hope so. That makes the whole thing make a lot more sense. I also wanted to tell you one of the other most hilarious minor league sports stories I ever had was I was in Las Vegas a few years ago and I wanted to go see the Las Vegas Lights play soccer. They were like a very new team at the time, and I roll up in an Uber with my now fiance, then girlfriend, and there's there are alpacas outside of the stadium. Flavor Flav was there at midtime at halftime, and then the game I went to, they got beat really badly, and the coach like pushed the referee and got like suspended for like 9 games. It was amazing.
Awesome.
It was everything I wanted and more.
Oh yeah, minor league sports the best. You get pro wrestlers out there doing signings. It's nuttiness, man. You just get everybody out there. It's great. So much fun.
Yeah. Do you still do any of that now, or are there plans to when in the after times?
No, I stepped down from doing that stuff when I started grad school, and then when that was done, I started having kids. So I'm looking into some fun side things I can start doing now that I'm sort of back to like a regular teaching schedule. Obviously, I just need this pandemic to end. I think we all do, so we can get out there and have a little fun again. Because I've always enjoyed having cool part-time jobs. Teaching was kind of the thing that sort of paid the bills, and I've enjoyed it because you get to be funny and you get to have fun with and teach people something. And but yeah, getting out and telling some jokes or doing some sort of fun weekend thing it's a blast. I think you got to have those outlets to go do fun things, and if you can get paid for it, that's even better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I've talked to some other people recently. I was talking to the guitarist in this pop punk band in Philly I'm a big fan of. Like he's got like a master's in mental health counseling, so he's got like a career, and then his band has incrementally gotten bigger and bigger. That is like how I liked approaching doing all this stuff, because I used to kind of live by if you don't make it by the time you're 30, then you have to just stop everything, and that's just not true, or it shouldn't be.
And I've known people that have done that, and it's one thing to step back for a bit, I think especially, when you have family responsibilities, things like that.
Sure.
Obviously it's like, hey, I could stay home with my daughter most nights and read and put her to bed, or I could go deal with drunks downtown telling jokes. So for right now, I'm going to enjoy putting my kids to bed and doing silly voices and reading books. And then, stick to maybe once a week, getting out and doing some stand up. But yeah, no, you're right, man. You don't have to stop. I mean, some of the happiest people I know are people who, they're incredibly talented musicians. Um, they're just like, look, I did the grind, decided the lifestyle wasn't for me,
Mm-hmm.
or like, hey, just my priorities changed and I didn't enjoy the road anymore, or I didn't enjoy this, or they just never wanted to be in that lifestyle. They just wanted to play music for people, and they're totally happy playing bar shows. Whereas with comics, if you say, hey, are you happy playing bar shows, you're like, no, I'm gonna lay down in traffic.
Sure.
Musicians are like, I'll play for anybody. Comics like, hey, you want to do bar shows for the rest of your life? No, shoot me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we say that, but I think most of us, given the opportunity, like if someone called me tomorrow and was like, you want to get on a mic? I'd be like, yeah, I'll get on a mic. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's at a nursing home, infected by COVID. And I'd be like, you know what? Let's go. Give me a mask. These people need to laugh as well. These people need to laugh as well.
Yeah. This might be one of the last couple ones they get.
That's right. Hey, I'm here. I got my biohazard suit on. Let's give you a couple of chuckles. All right.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to the whole idea of like remembering to approach it as an entertainer. Like if you get too caught up in like, I'm a vehicle for social change, or I'm like the last bastion of free speech or what have you, then that gets away from like the really cool part of the whole thing, is that you can like bring some people some joy for a little bit, and then they might thank you afterwards, and that's what I try to always remember.
People want to connect with you. That's what I've always found. They want to connect with you. They don't want to be lectured. I've known comics that have, they've kind of taken on like the Bill Hicks persona, which Bill Hicks for his time and place is pretty amazing. I don't know how well it holds up in 2020. But it's one of those deals where it's like, I'm going to lecture you about things. It's like, dude, you're washing dishes. Like, don't lecture me. Okay. And I'm not putting down washing dishes. I wash dishes.
So did I.
Don't act like you're holier than thou because you got that microphone in your hand. Okay. And even the age and the change stuff, I think, obviously we're at a very critical time in our country's history. There are some things that really need to change. But I think sometimes what comics have to remember too is people have come to see you to escape from that, because it's been in their news feed all day. It's been in their workplace all day. It's been on the front of their newspaper while they eat their cereal. It's on their phones. Like you literally can't escape a lot of things these days. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think there's just times too where, as a comic, you have to go, all right, these people need a break. Or if you are going to go that direction, awesome, just make it funny.
That's the key point.
Just make it funny. You can have the social piece. I'm all for it. I think it's great. I mean, it's part of what we do as comics, or did as comics when I was still doing it. But just make sure it's funny. Make people think, but make them laugh at the same time. And also too, if you're not that comic, that's okay. I think that's sometimes a mistake that comics can make, where it's like, I'm going to be the man about the issues. And it's like, no, dude, like that's not you. Like, you're either A, recognize that one, you're not smart enough. Okay. Or two, like that's just not, it doesn't fit your stage persona. I never really wanted to get up there and be like the, how should I say this? I don't mean to use social justice warrior in a negative way, but I just knew from my stage persona and what I felt like I knew what was coming from my heart material wise, that wasn't necessarily me, you know, at least at that time. Whereas there are other comics who get up there and they do it, and I'm like, dude, that's brilliant, because they have it. And I think you just need to recognize what you have and what you don't. If you're a 100 120-pound, or excuse me, 180-pound spindly guy. You're not an offensive lineman. Be the wide receiver, okay?
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it's just you just kind of have to know what your abilities are as a comic. You know, if that makes any sense. I
Oh,
just alienated the entire audience.
oh no, it makes total sense to me. Like I remember, like my band in college before we broke up. Like I tried to write a political song because I was really into, I had just really started getting into Anti-Flag, and it wasn't that good, and I found that my strengths were in, and particularly in comedy. Like I do not do political very very well. I do the kind of joke that makes you go, wait, what? Ah, that's my strength. So I've started leaning into that. I am trying to get as good as I can at that. And then also like doing this, I found that I have a knack for doing this podcast because people listen to it. And that's important too. Recognizing what you're good at does not mean that you are weak in other areas. It's okay. Go to your strengths. If you have strengths, it's great to play those. I wanted to ask you, and then I'll because I know I know you got like a family and stuff.
Yeah,
so
upstairs.
So I wanted to ask you, given the pandemic, are you going to be back at school sometime this fall, you think, or are you still distance learning at this time?
No, we're distance learning until the end of January.
Okay, good.
So I will be spending. So this background you see behind me, this awesome wood paneled wall.
Yeah.
This will be the background of my virtual classroom once again, and
Cool.
my kindergartner will be upstairs with her mom, doing kindergarten. So yeah, if you need me, don't. Yeah, no, we're gonna be here holed up in our bunker. Teaching until January, so we're hoping for the best. You know, I think we're all at a place where we're tired. You know, we're getting grumpy, like everyone else. You know, we're just trying to keep ourselves sane. You know, we've been very fortunate in terms of you know, people we know and family have, you know, luckily been healthy, or if they have been affected by it, they've recovered quickly. So you know, on the more serious side of things, you know, we're just doing what we could do. We're trying to make good decisions. You know, we had to expand our bubble a little bit. Our daughter was turning into a feral cat, so you know, we needed to socialize her a little bit. But you know, we're just trying to be smart about it. You know, we've got some other families that we know are also trying to be responsible, doing masks where necessary, or you know, they're not working, we're not working. They're not hanging out in bars. We're not hanging out in bars. You know, I still have not gone and done. I think I've been to one restaurant and sat outside, and that was for just a coaches meeting I had at the end of the season. But you know, everyone's like, "Oh, you want to go to a restaurant?" I'm like, "No, I'm good." I just don't. I don't think I would enjoy it.
Yeah,
like I'd be sitting there like looking at that guy with his mask and his nose hanging out, and be like, you did it." And you know, I'm gonna be sitting there the whole time judging everybody in my head. I'm like, "No, you know, I'm just gonna stay home."
Yeah, I've gone out a couple of times just because my fiance needs the special occasion thing, but it's always it's always in a place where it's again outside, very socially distanced, and I put on the mask every time the person comes by. I don't care if it's neurotic or not.
Oh, I do it at the drive-through. I'm like, you know, I order my food and then throw my mask on and everything. So yeah, no, I'm doing it. I mean, it's annoying. It's a pain in the butt. But I mean, it's not as awful as everybody makes it sound. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. America. Yeah, because I've got a friend a comic friend who works in healthcare and like got it and recovered, and he'll say ventilator is a lot worse than having to wear a mask to run into Walmart. A lot worse.
Yeah, no, it's.
Well,
yeah. Anybody who's ever been intubated, it's like, oh, would you ever want that, or would you want it again? Oh,
yeah.
No,
I've been watching.
No good.
I've been watching ER from the beginning and seeing a lot of intubations and like, no, not about it. Well, dude, I'm glad that I'm glad that you're well. I'm glad that you're like healthy. Your family is healthy and happy and right on
knock
that.
on wood.
Yeah, so
that's real wood paneling. I want you to know that.
I mean, from what I can see in the background here, dear listener, this is like the perfect I'm not going to say man cave, but it's like a classy man cave because that's what wood paneling gives you, is that air of sophistication.
Well, what you're staring at is the only wood paneled wall in the basement. This is like, here, I'll show you. This is literally a basement. So not tip out wires. Look, there we go. We got laundry over there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, we've got it's you know, it is what it is. But we like it. It's fun.
That's great, man. Is there anything I can plug before we get out here?
Geez, I'm trying to see if there's anything I can plug at this time.
Do you have do you have a podcast? I thought you did.
We did, and it was one of those things. Again, kids came and things sort of fell to the wayside, so we're trying to resurrect it. But it's tough with podcasts, and because you got to do it weekly. You got to post at the same time.
Yeah,
you got to be given that fresh content. Otherwise, even if it's a hobby thing, you want to see it go somewhere, do something. And we just got to a point where it's like, look, we're kind of in a place we can't get it done at a consistent time. We can't get it posted at a consistent time. So we just didn't want to be the podcast that's like, oh yeah, I do a podcast. Oh, where do I find it? Well, we post once every 7 months.
Right.
You don't know when, so we just decided, let's bag it for now. But I think the old episodes are out there. It's the J&J Show podcast. We had a lot of fun. We had some cool guests, and right now there's nothing for me to plug because nothing's freaking going on. So
yeah. Well, dude,
thanks for having me, man.
Oh, dude, it was great to get to talk to you because I don't think I haven't seen you in a number of years. I know
it's been a while,
and I've seen you become a father over Facebook and
allegedly.
Allegedly, and then I have
those kids don't look like me. Those kids don't look like me. They don't look anything like me. No, I'm just kidding. They're blonde with blue eyes. There's no denying.
Exactly. They're definitely.
I got the Hitler Youth running around upstairs.
and then again, you were again, I told T-Brad this, very much a part of my growth as a creative person. So thanks for being there for it and for being a friend, man. And I know,
man.
And I. In the after times, I owe you a beer and we'll do a show somewhere.
I would love to come up to New York when the things all settle down and do some time. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I haven't done New York in a long time, so I'd be down for it, man. But I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad you're getting married. You look a grown up. You look a grown up, man.
Yeah, things are. I've pulled it together. I was kind of a lost soul when you knew me when I started comedy in Baltimore, and I'm pulling I'm pulling myself together, and I interviewed Mitch Allen from SR71 this year. I'm so happy. Things.
Can I, sorry, finish your story, and then can I tell a Mitch Allen story?
Oh, 100%. So
yes,
and I interviewed him in the most crazy circumstances. I got connected with him because I interviewed Jared from the band Bowling for Soup, the lead singer. So
okay,
I'm really coming in and I was so happy getting to talk with him because they were after Blink-182, my second favorite band, it was SR71. I love their music. What's your Mitch Allen story?
Okay, so I was while I was living in LA, buddy of mine was out there for work with his company, and they're up in the valley. He goes, hey, he knows I don't have any money. And he's like, hey, you hungry? I was like, yeah. He goes, come meet us up in the valley. We're doing sushi. It's on my boss. It's like I told him. He's like, yeah, bring your friend. It's cool, man. So I meet him at this sushi restaurant, and we're just awesome sushi, having a good time with his coworkers. And I look over at this table, and I see this guy with this very distinctive haircut. And I was like, and I looked at my buddy. I was like, hey, and he was the Baltimore music scene guy too. I was like, hey,
yeah.
Is that Mitch Allen? He goes, dude, I'm pretty sure that's Mitch. And I was like, get out of here. So I'm getting ready to leave. And so I get up and I walk by the table, and he's not really having a serious conversation or anything, but I just stopped for a minute. And I was like, because you see celebrities all the time in LA. You don't really stop and say anything because they're just whatever. They're a dime a dozen. But with Mitch, I stopped. I was like, excuse me. I said, Mitch Allen, SR71. And he just stops and goes, yeah. I was like, hey, you guys got boned on your second album, dude. That record was amazing. He was like, I know, right? And we shook hands, and I was like, hey, my name's Jay Szech. I'm a comic. I'm from Baltimore. Love you guys. I said, always rooting for you. He was like, oh, that's so awesome, man. Thank you so much. And he could not have been nicer about the whole thing. But when I told him he got effed over on the second album, he was like, yes, yes. And so that's my Mitch
That
story. And yeah, he could not have been nicer about the whole thing.
that
I never like to bother anybody while they're eating. Like I could see like somebody, like I could see my parents across the room, be like, they're eating. I don't want to bother
mhm.
them. But no, he could not have been nicer. And I think one, he was just appreciative of somebody from Baltimore recognized him in LA, and then two, man, they really did get screwed over on that second album, man. It was such a good record.
It was really good. I liked that it was a little heavier than the first one. Like,
yeah,
it had great songs on it. Like Goodbye was great. Lucky was great. In My Mind, that was a great song, that kind of waltzy song towards the end.
Yeah, they were part of that whole mid 2000s record company where we got to cut, we got to save money because digital is starting to kill us, and we're just going to jettison a bunch of bands. And I feel like those are one of those bands that they literally were eating their young and just tossed them to the wayside, and that was kind of it, unfortunately. So pissed me off, man. I love them.
I love them too. You know they did a third album, right? That only came out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Wanted to make sure.
I have it.
Yeah, I have it also. Well, if I can tell you, and this I think will be a great way to close. He's doing great. He's very happy where he is writing songs behind the scenes, and he's still putting out like some great. He's a part of like some really big pop songs, so he's in a pretty good place.
Yeah. No, that's the last I heard was that he was writing, and his name was on a lot of stuff publishing wise. So I feel like our buddy Mitch is doing okay.
He is. You know that Jason Derulo song, "Want You Want the One," but
yes,
girl, he has a credit on that. I talked to.
That's what I thought.
I talked to him about that on the episode as well. That was a high point for me, and this is again full circle. I'm glad that we got to have this chat today, Jay.
This was awesome, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and you've inspired me to get out as soon as this is over and do stand up, with children strapped to my back. So this should be fun.
I mean, I am probably a few years off from doing that as well, so I'll be right there with you, man. Thanks again, Jay. Great talking to you.
No problem. You too, buddy. Be safe and be good. Love you. Take it easy.
You too, man. Love you too. I love that, dude. It was great to get to talk to Jade again. I look forward to sharing a bill with him in the after times once this is all over, because that's, if there's anything that the pandemic has taught me, it is that I'm not going to take anything that occurs outside of my apartment and activities in front of people for granted ever again. So thank you for chatting with me, Jay. It was great to hear from you again, man. And thank you guys for listening to this. If you enjoyed this podcast and have a friend who you think might be interested as well, I've got over 170 something episodes now at this point. Oh man, coming up on episode 200 pretty soon. I'll have to do something special for that. And if you guys enjoyed this, we're available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. If you want to get a free month of Stitcher Premium, you can, and also support the show, you can do that by going to stitcher.com/premium and signing up with the promo code AWESOME. That'll get you your first month free, and that also gets you access to comedy albums, ad-free archives of your favorite comedy podcasts. I have Stitcher Premium, and I enjoy it very much. So if you want to get a free month when you sign up, you can use the promo code AWESOME. I also would love to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level. Mary Beth Mooney, thank you so much for your support. I sincerely appreciate it. And if you guys want to check out what I've got going over on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Things have been a little hectic for me personally, so I have not posted anything recently, but if any of my supporters are listening, I will get you some exclusives, some more stuff available soon, and I've got a lot of stuff to enjoy there now as well. So thank you guys very much for checking that out and to listening to this. I hope you guys continue to stay safe and be well, even in the persistence, even in the face of heartbreaking and sad news. But I imagine most of the people who listen to this know where where the moral high ground is, and I appreciate you guys for being here. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey, Will Carey23 on Instagram, and thanks for being here, guys. And I will see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe and wear a mask.